Now that's a sip. Well, hello, and welcome back. I did the double statement. No, getting back into it here. Alright, welcome back. It's Chad over Broshears, or search Chad over Broshears to sub if you know you know. Today's episode of The Maturity Project, because that's the show, coming to you live at the moment from my mobile studio. Seems that my voice decided they wanted to be a little deeper today. I'm kind of enjoying it. Anyway, so the way that I like to do this show, and there's plenty of people that have had usually do follow this, and they see regularly. So bear with me if there's an introduction to people that may not be as familiar. I really enjoy looking at different opportunities to grow and how to get to it, realizing along the way how I'm changing specific experiences and preferences. Where before I might have wanted comfort for whatever reason, and I still find myself wanting comfort in certain situations, and I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute. But as far as like how to get to comfort, why you're going for it, what comfort actually is by comparison to, because it could also still be very relative to you versus other people, that kind of thing. But, looking for the process of becoming geared to grow. Hell, that actually might be a tagline. Geared to grow. Because that's where I'm at. Like now I'm absolutely geared to grow. Hardships suck. If your goal and the idea about feeling sucks is, the undesirable, and typically the undesirable detached from, the outcome, like the bigger picture outcome. So when somebody says, "Hey, this really sucks," well, what their focus is on what they're going through at the moment, and they're omitting the future opportunities that are there. Like what's going to come out of it, short and long term. And the long term is so incredibly challenging to perceive, because what sucks today can still suck tomorrow, and it'll suck until you develop the skill sets to overcome it. And you're going to continue to have that. This sucks until you understand what it's doing to you, because everything does something to you. It's just there are a great deal of things that we experience in life, or that we put our consciousness on, that we don't realize what it's doing. So, example of this is, if you don't read, and then you read a little every day, before you know it, your ability to articulate your experience in life will go up, and your ability to understand what you're going through will start to change as well. And this doesn't matter really necessarily what you're reading. It molds you into a different perspective and different perception in life. So it's fascinating how we do that stuff. So what sucks today turns to tomorrow, and then the day after that, and before you know it, it has this ripple through time. The thing about ripples are that eventually it gets to the point you really don't notice it, that there's the ripple, like a pond where you drop a pebble in a pond, right where the first moment the pond or the pebble goes into the water creates the ripple, and it's noticeable, incredibly noticeable, because it has disrupted the stillness of the pond. And then as you get halfway to the shoreline, the ripple seems to lose the defining definitions and values that it originated from, because it's kind of leveled into your life in a way that you've become accustomed to it. Well, and we have where you get to the shoreline itself, and there the ripple becomes noticeable again, but now the ripple shows its real power about your life and what it can do, and how it moves the shoreline. It sometimes recedes the shoreline, which is often actually the real way it works. But it changes things, and you can see the power of what the force that originated and how it turned into something else. Because of what it's doing in your perception, getting the shoreline. It's up to it, and then the more ripples you get, before you know it, your shoreline changes. So the body of which the water exists within changes. Same thing with us. So you get these situations where life is giving us specific experiences and it changes us. My awareness of this has gone up because of my experience and the way that I am now in my 40s compared to who I was in my 30s and compared to who I was in my 20s. And as a fantastic example, there was she was a good friend, and a girl that I was dating at the time had told me I had a job as a manager working for a chain of company with a bunch of chains of stores, but I was at one location, and it's my early 20s or mid 20s actually, and she told me, yeah, Chad, you're not a very good manager. You kind of suck at it. Now in my 40s, I teach managers how to manage, and I teach companies how to manage. So, and how to manage in the most effective way possible instead of, this is the system everybody else has used. So how to actually get to the actual employee, in a way that it motivates them and makes them want to buy in to the opportunities the company is providing instead of just a paycheck. Because you're being provided all kinds of things when you're working for a company. They're teaching you how to do that business. Even though you have an essential role for that business to work, they're also teaching you how to do that business. And then they're teaching you their management styles, and they're teaching you their secrets. They're teaching you a lot. But if you're there for the paycheck, you kind of omit those things. You don't take pride in learning it. And then you might reclaim it when asked, or on the next job interview, you'd be like, oh yeah, I did this for them. But your focus on how those things work was not very high. It's not like you got all the details that are available because you weren't paying attention to it. Shift your perspective, before you know it, you've learned a lot. And you can study people that are effective in the business. It has to be effective if it was able to hire you, and has to have enough of an effectiveness that they had the affordability to get you to be their employee. So that's studying it from that way. So if you put I work for a company as the pebble in the pond, well, there's your first thing. But it's like, yeah, you got a relief, I'm sure, because you're employed and you have some place of earning income. But on the other side of it is where things kind of get to the mundane and the whatever of the job. And you're like, oh, whatever, I'm working. And I got to be there. I work Monday through Friday, or whatever your schedule is. Commonly, Monday through Friday is easy enough for this example. And, I just do these things, and I punch the clock, and then I, got whatever, interpersonal drama going on in the company, and then I go off and do my thing. And then I punch the clock, and I leave, and I do whatever after work. It's just like this. There's really not a lot of depth of development and understanding about life at that point. It's just kind of doing stuff. And I'm not a fan of just doing stuff myself. I'm more of like, let's study what we're going through. Let's develop, and let's move forward. So, pay attention to what you're going through, and you'll see the impact on the other side. You'll magnify the outcome versus not paying attention to it. So as I'm talking about this, is just the way that I've shifted perspectives. Though I was thinking the other day how much, there was a stage in my life whenever it's like, hey, I just want to sit around and do nothing, and maybe have, drink a beer and relax, and I've got nothing on the docket for today, and there's no progress to make or anything. I'm just taking a break from everything and relaxing, like the mini vacations the weekend typically represents for a lot of people. And I'm like, when was the last time I actually did that first? And secondly, when was the last time that I really wanted to do that? Because no matter what, there's always something. If I decide to sit down on the couch and watch TV for a little bit in the middle of the day, I've sandwiched that with lawn work. I've sandwiched that with, mentally processing something about the business that I'm involved with at the time. It's just constantly doing something. But you see, the joy of it is that I'm doing something that I'm actually taking joy in. It's because of perspective. I have shifted it in a way that I'm now capable of really developing significantly, because I'm constantly coming up through the process of studying what's going on around me. No, if I see that there's something that needs to be done, I'm not aware of what needs to be done enough that I can be functional at doing it, then it's time to study it. And from there, I can improve my skill set. If it's in the company that I'm working with, well, there's my report card. I may be highly proficient in a lot of places, but a report card is based off of multiple areas of aptitude, not one, not two, but multiple. And it gives you an overview of competency and effectiveness. That's how I look at things. So whenever I'm given different things, like, the current company I'm with, which is a fantastic company, it's one of my favorite I've ever worked with. My job now is I wear two very high level hats. So HR and I'm ops. Well, HR, not a heavy area of focus for me in my development as much as doing the operations and the psychological profiles and development of processes for a company to be successful. Now I've got two hats, and it's time to really learn a lot more in that world for HR. So what do? I've got to start studying again. That's all it is. What's the expectation of it? And how well am I doing at it? Now, what do I know about it? What do I know about finding out what I don't know? And, current skill set, what can I do? So it's a beautiful thing when you really start looking at opportunities for growth. Now, I don't just keep this in the world of business. So I do this in, my relationships. I do this in every aspect of my life. I look for what I don't know. And I've started this interesting thing that it's kind of, when you make a decision to do something, it seems like there's like a momentum you build up, or at times you do this, you get this momentum, and you're like, all right, I'm doing it. You kind of you get yourself psyched up to do it. And then there's other times whenever it's just like you just change. It's like a light switch or something, and then you're just like, okay, didn't have to psych myself up for it. I just did it. Just did something else, and I just did this different thing. That's what I'm experiencing now. So, with taking a cold shower, I did it this morning. I did it on Sunday, so it's not a big difference. I mean, it's Sunday and then Wednesday, right? So there's 2 days I didn't do it. And that was yesterday. I intended on it, but I turned the shower on, and then I did something, and then I went over to it, and the water had heated up above that 78 degrees. So I'm like, crap, or 76, whatever it is. I've got the little temperature gauge on the wall of my shower. So I'm like, okay, whatever. And I missed it yesterday. And I kind of damn it, I just had to move a little bit faster, but I want to get under the water and get out of the shower and do whatever I had to do before getting my shower. Because it just, my timing was slightly off. And then there's the critique. Okay, we'll fix your timing. Because I stand for doing it, just do what you need to do. And next thing you know, this morning, I turn it on, I stand there for a second, and I go, all right, well, I'm committed to doing this. Stepped right in it, and got a good amount of time where I got the cold burst before it heated up. Now, I'm not doing a consistent cold shower. It's a cold shock shower. I'm just cold, get that shock going, and then warm up and kind of get me moving. Now, you could do an entire cold shower. I'm not doing that, and that's not my intention right now. It's just to get the shock out of it, get that morning rush out of it, get the testosterone benefits of it, and get the overall health benefits in that short window that I'm allowed to get through that short window physiologically. So that's it. I did it this morning, and you know what? It's funny because the idea of a cold shower is worse to me than a cold shower is, or to step into the cold. So it's worse by the idea, like jumping off a bridge into a body of water that has a reasonable and safe distance. So I'm not going to harm myself by jumping off the bridge, but it's the idea of safety that I'm letting go of. It was similar to my experience when I went skydiving. And I did this back in my 20s, so it was 20 years ago roughly, or nearly 20 years ago when I went skydiving. I did this then because I was afraid of heights. And not necessarily like petrified, but there was a weird thing about heights, right? Like I'd feel my body wanting to be pulled towards whatever it was that gave me the understanding I was at a height, excuse me, and I try to, get out there and get close enough. But then there was like a rush that went with it. And I'm like, oh man, but it's scary because, all I do is just lose my balance or whatever. And, at the heights that I was viewing, the awareness that it was up there would very likely be fatal if I were to fall, and almost certainly be fatal. So, I'd be pulled towards it a little bit, and then something, it's like something in me pulling me. I'm like, well, all right, well, I don't like that. Well, when I went skydiving, it took over. I had no idea how I was going to react, and I was like, I was scared of it, but I was doing it because that's how I got over social anxiety in my teen years. You wouldn't think that I have anxiety now because I've worked on it my entire life. But we got it. We got all suited up and all of that, and it wasn't really that real yet. Standing down, on the tarmac or at the airplane hangar or whatever, the prep area before we got into the plane to go up. And I'm there with my friend Adam and this girl, a friend of mine, I guess, Kinsley. I'm sorry, what's it? Kinsley? No, not Kinsley. Shit. No, she's not going to be happy. I forgot her name. So anyway, I'm there with, she's like she's a friend from school, so we weren't overly close, but we knew each other and that kind of thing. And she happened to be there that day with us. And so we were down there talking and whatever. No real anxiety. It wasn't that real yet. And then they're like, all right, well, we're going to get on the plane now. We did a couple mock things to make sure we had an idea about the way it was going to go. Like when you go to land, stuff like that, that all was done. But that wasn't really overly real as much as it was just like, okay, it's part of the process. Then we got in the plane. And they did a little video thing too, whatever. That's not really that important to this conversation, the story. But so we get in the plane, and then we take off. And it's a little, it's one of those small, single prop type planes. And there's no seats, it's just a bench. It was a long piece of wood that they use as a bench to sit on both sides of the plane. And, there we are, we've got, we're all harnessed up. We're tandem. Is if you're inexperienced, you don't jump alone. You got to actually qualify to jump on your own. So you have to have a parachute. So I'm there tandem strapped to this dude that's got, I don't know, he's probably 220 pounds, 115 pounds. At the time, I'm like 180. But worked out a lot. That'll be relevant in a minute. So we're just sitting there, and like when we got loaded up, I was on early. And it wasn't intentional. It was just so happy where I was standing. So I wasn't like, oh, I got to get on early so I can get out last. But I noticed it once I got into the plane that, hey, you know what? I don't have to jump first. Thank God. So at least I can watch other people and then, maybe build up towards it, or they're going to throw me out or something, right? Or I'm just not going to go. I didn't know what to expect. Well, we're climbing altitude, and the guy turns his wristwatch. Well, it looks like a wristwatch to me, but it's how you gauge the height, the altitude. And he shows it, and he goes, "This is where we're jumping." And he's yelling it because the door is open, and it's loud in there. And like, this is where, when we get here, we're jumping. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. And next thing I know, we get to altitude, and they're like, all right, guys, we're gonna jump. And Ken, crap, it's right there. Anyway, so she's the girl that we're there with. She's right there at the exit. She's first out. And I remember thinking to myself as I took my position in the plane, where I was and when I was going to jump, and I go, at least I'm not jumping when she is, because that sucks, first person out of the plane. And as soon as we hit altitude, when he showed me the watch, I felt something shifting, or the altitude gauge on his wrist. I felt something shifting. But I wasn't quite sure what it was, because it was kind of a first time, or it was very similar. I'd felt it before, but not in these circumstances, so it seemed new. And I'm like, wow, okay. And then after he put his wrist down, I remember thinking to myself, going, she's going first. Damn it. I can't believe she's going to go first. I want to go first. No, this animal side of me came out. I'm like, no, let's go. And it's the cautious, worried person that was there before disappeared. And what was left was, I'm going, man. I want to go. So Adam was just slightly before me. And I'm thinking, well, this sucks. I'm going to be the last one down, like last of my group, the three of us. And I'm like, damn it, man. So as soon as it cleared up enough, they're sliding out and all of this. And then it wasn't like everybody moved at one time towards the doors. A couple people at a time would move. And next thing, I'm like, okay, let's go. And I'm in front of the guy, obviously, that I'm jumping with, the tandem, because he's strapped to my back. And I'm like trying to scoot down this rail to get to the exit, to the door of the plane, because I want to get out. I'm dragging the guy that outweighs me, clearly, dragging this guy down the beam to get to the exit. I wanted out of the plane, not because I was scared, because I was in the middle of a rush. It was something took over. And then, even then when we stood there on the side and it's just looking down, it's just, there's certain death if this parachute doesn't work. And I'm like, oh, I gotta go. So the guy goes like that, and he's telling me that he's gonna do. So the count of three, and he goes on two. I actually was expecting you on one. I wanted to go on one. And then the two got me because I wasn't paying attention as much. I'm like, I guess we're going to go to three and then we're out. And it's just, it wasn't as scary to me. It wasn't even that real. It was like this surreal experience. It became more real once we punched through the clouds, because there was some clouds below us. And then once we went through the clouds, it was pretty cool, because just this cool experience, this feeling of kind of like an air conditioner. Even though it was already cool because of the wind flowing by so fast, it was it was late spring, early summer in Florida. But as soon as we got into the clouds, it was, and I know what it is by science, it's the air molecules, or the water in the air around, that actually creates an insulating, cooling effect. So I just went right through that, and man, was it awesome. I was like, wow. And then as soon as we came through the clouds, I could see again, and I could see the ground. But this time, I could see the ground. And I could really see the ground. And I could see the houses and all this stuff. And I'm like, ooh. And I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do about this now. But just go with it. Because there's no stopping what's happening. And that gave me a really interesting experience where I surrendered to the way that things are, but realized my actions that led me to that point. So, the undesirables about it, I blew my eardrum out. Hurt like hell, just because the altitude changes all that. I wasn't able to acclimate very well. But other than that, the landing was good. Excuse me, the guy did a great job. My tandem partner, the jumper that was paid to go with me, he did a great job. It was overall, it was a very interesting experience. I've had it. I don't really need to do it again. It's not that I'm scared of it. I just don't have a desire for it. But if I feel that fear is starting to creep in again on me, I'm going to do it. Just because it's, I've got to face it, right? Get under the cold water, take that cold shower, get into the pool, step in, don't ease your way in, just get in, So I'm doing this in a lot of other ways too in my life. And it's just like, you got to do stuff. Otherwise you're going to live into a pattern you become comfortable with. And that pattern will eventually claim you. It'll become what people know about you. And if it has that degree of discomfort about who you are, and you're not getting where you want to be, well, then it's going to fester, and it'll continue to build up on you. Before you know it, it can have dire consequences, because it makes you do things that you're not normally going to do, but you do it out of the wrong reasons. You do it to try to get away from things, or you do it because you feel like life isn't going the way you want it to, but your actions dictate your life should go that way. So then that spiteful and resentful side of you can come into play. And if you've got people that you've made agreements with, whether you just didn't speak your mind, stand up and say no, or to say yes to things, and you said what you believed was the right answers to the person that is, that was involved in that, Well, they started building their reality on they started building their reality on your agreements. So when you change your agreement, it shocks them, and it creates the potential of souring the relationship, because that agreement was something that they become dependent on. They wanted and they built the reality that they were going to live in based off of, and two aspects. I'm not saying the totality of their existence, but it has foundational values to some extent. There's a benefit of you being involved in their life the way they are, that you are. So the ripples in the pond affects everybody, but it is you drop the pebble. No matter what other people are saying, whatever, the agreements of the relationships that you're in, you still drop the pebble. You're the one that created the motion, whether it was something you really agreed with or not. And that can be, the value proposition process, where you're learning what the values are that the other person is bringing to the relationship, and what you're in need of or what you desire. And, you kind of do this whole value thing, and you look at, well, this person has this particular attribute that is so much more matured than my own, or that is in value contributory to what I have and what I'm going through. This is benefiting me. Distant to this other person. What is it that they're wanting from you? And it could be part, that plus something else. It's often, multiple things that your partners want from you, or the people that get into relationships that they want. They have multiple factors. And the same thing with us. I mean, we want it too. We don't take the time to realize these things, though. We're like on autopilot a lot of times. And then we wonder why the relationships that we get involved with keep repeating themselves. And I don't just mean that in the intimate partnership type of relationship of boyfriend, girlfriend, that kind of thing, or whatever. I'm also saying that in business. I'm saying that for every single relationship. If you've got friends that you keep hitting friends, and they're just, always seem to be, jerks, right? Or, they don't really seem to be, fully vested in you, and you get these frustrations. Who was involved in that negotiation? You were. You're the major component of that negotiation. You were there. You made the decisions. Now, you may not have negotiated well. Who's the ripples in the pond, man? You saw something that benefited you at the time, and it outweighed the thing that you're now aware of being out of balance and undesirable. Well, what their attributes were had a higher degree of significance to you. Until you become saturated in that particular attribute, where it could get to the point where you're taking for granted what you have, that kind of thing. You don't realize what that is. It's like, oh, okay, you're happy to have it, and then all of a sudden you get saturated, and you're like, I'm not happy anymore. This is a problem. This is bothersome. What did I give up to be here? And then you become aware of what the costs were of your own attributes, or your own time, or whatever, your own resources that had to be exchanged for that. Again, we don't think about this stuff typically. What we do is we just do. We keep doing. Human doing. Doing. So we're not creating as much as we have somebody else create for us. We still make these agreements, but the way we position it is that they have to bring something to it that actually does for us, instead of doing it for ourselves. And that's what I'm up to, is just constantly do this for myself and build and develop, and then hopefully inspire others to do the same thing. So, all right, that's it for today. This is Chad Everett Broshears. I am the host of The Maturity Project, or search out Everett Broshears to some if you know. Join me on the journey. Geared to grow. I like it. Geared to grow. Good. We got a world to work on, and we can all tell that is definitely out there. We've got a world to work on, but we got to work on ourselves first. Share this video with people in your life you want to break the ice with. Have this kind of conversation, or start something like this. Don't forget to like the video, comment in the comment section. We'll catch you on the next one, okay? Let's get to it. See ya. Ooh.